Are you looking for inspiring conversations about faith, film, and life? You're in the right place. Here's the host who knows the right questions to ask, Father Edward Looney.
Hey everybody, it's Father Edward. Grateful that you're tuning in for another conversation. Want to make you aware of a new film coming to theaters. It's called White Bird. I've had the opportunity actually to see it two times through a pre-screener link, and wrote a review that'll be published for Living City magazine in their print publication. And today I am speaking with Andy Erwin, who is one of the executive producers with Kingdom Story, the company behind the film White Bird. So thanks so much, Andy, for taking time out of your day.
Father Edward, it's a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. I'm glad that you got a chance to watch it, and I can't wait to read your review.
Yeah, well, wonderful. And, I just want to maybe learn a little bit more about Kingdom Story. So it's a Kingdom Story film with Lionsgate. What's the story behind Kingdom Story?
Yeah, with Kingdom Story Company, it was just something that for us, we had done a movie called I Can Only Imagine, and that was kind of a about 6 years ago, and we just kind of decided to make a platform where we could find other redemptive stories that showed Christianity in action and kind of see those made and to kind of capitalize the opportunity. And so Lionsgate, our parent company, had come along and they wanted to really invest in our audience. And they really gave us a chance to tell these stories on a large scale. And so since then, we've gotten a chance to tell some really amazing ones, from American Underdog to, about Kurt Warner, to Jesus Revolution that came out a couple of years ago, to Ordinary Angels that came out earlier this year. And so we just look for stories that we feel like we can put our stamp on, that put good back out in the world, show the power of Christianity in action. And sometimes those things are more overt, like a Jesus Revolution, and sometimes they're more subversive, like Ordinary Angels. But we just try really hard to find things that show what we believe.
Yeah, you just mentioned a few films there that I've seen that I really enjoyed, that I recommend to people. So, you mentioned American Underdog. I see that poster in the back there, but
Yeah.
that was a great film. I really encouraged dads and grandpas to go see it with their
Mhm.
sons and grandchildren. I wrote one of the viral Catholic reviews for Jesus Revolution. So yeah, so I really enjoyed those films. I guess I didn't fully realize that that was your production company. So that's wonderful. Now, this movie, White Bird, it's set in Nazi Germany. It's during the Holocaust or the Shoah. And, it's a beautiful little story that's being told. But one of the things people say, or how it's, promoted, is that it's a prequel or a sequel to the movie Wonder. And
Yeah.
so people will think about the movie Wonder. I saw that in theaters a number of years ago, back in, I think it was 2017 when it was out. And so that was the story about like some little boy that had a facial defect or something, right? And
Mhm.
going to school and such, and just kind of being tormented by peers and so forth. So how is this movie White Bird a prequel or a sequel to Wonder?
You set it up great, Father Edward. It was beautiful. When I saw that story, I was like, if we could ever be a part of a movie like that, I would love to jump on board, because it was just, the first movie was about the power of kindness. Uh, but this one is a spin-off in a way that's unexpected. So in that first story, there's a bully character named Julian, and Julian has been the one that's been picking on this kid that has some physical disability named Augie, and as a result, he's been expelled from school. And so he goes home after being expelled, and he's struggling to make it in a new school. And now he's in this position of being, the one that needs help. And and he comes home to find his grandmother, who's visiting from France, has kind of come for a visit. She's played by Oscar winner Helen Mirren, who's an amazing person. And so his grandmother comes home and says, "You don't know the history of your name. You've been a bully for persecuting somebody else. You don't know where your name came from." And she sits down and tells him this story about her as a little girl in German Nazi occupied France during World War II, during the Holocaust, and as a little Jewish girl, um, try to come arrest her and all of her friends and her family. And there's this one little boy that has physical disabilities that puts his life on the line to save her. And the scene that really kind of captured me, that said this is a movie we want to be a part of, is during that raid when the German SS officers are coming to arrest all the children and take them to what they say is going to be their parents, but really to a concentration camp. There's a priest that is the headmaster for the school, and a nun who is the teacher, and they both put their life on the line for this little girl and for the kids in their class. And in fact, the teacher says, "I go where my children go," and she gets on the transport with them, knowing that that means she's probably going to a concentration camp. And when I saw that at the end of the movie, Helen Mirren's character goes back and tells her grandson this quote. She says, "When an act of kindness can cost you your life, it becomes somewhat of a miracle." And I was just like, that shows the idea of who is my neighbor and how do I love my neighbor in just a whole new way. And the words of Christ just came alive. And I was like, that's something we have to be a part of.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so this is a story. Is it historical fiction? It's, sometimes we get some of these World War II stories and they're inspired by, someone's journal or real events. But is this just historical fiction?
I think the author of the book, she was inspired by that journey that she's kind of created with Wonder, and kind of went searching for true stories that happened during the Holocaust that would inspire it. So it definitely has. You can see remnants of something like a story like The Hiding Place or different things like that that kind of have influenced it. So it definitely has its DNA in those stories from the Holocaust, but it is a kind of whimsical, fictional inspiration from those stories.
What's your biggest hope for people as they go watch the film? Of course, there's always those little buttons that people wear that say "be kind." So obviously kindness and all of that, that's kind of the overarching message. Like, just be mindful of your words and your actions to others. But is there anything else that somebody watching it should look for or maybe walk away with?
Well, I think it goes back to that statement, of when it can cost you everything. I think kindness without courage can be kind of cheap, you know, but kindness when there's a risk of losing things, standing up for people when it's not popular, that's when I think kindness takes on a real power to it. And I think right now, especially in just in culture in general, uh, there just needs to be the courage to be kind, the courage to stand up for what's right. Instead of just going with the mob. And I think right now that that's a story that's really needed. And so my hope is that people will really get reconnected with what really matters, and to stand for what's right.
Yeah, whenever I watch movies like this, it just kind of is dumbfounding to me that people were so vile, pointing out, individuals
Yeah.
that people were looking for and wanting to
Yep.
really put them, knowing that they're going to die or they're going to be
Yep.
interned in a camp or whatever. Like, I just look at it and I wonder, how did this happen? How could we have let this happen?
Yeah. That question too is like, how does it get to that point? But then I look at like what's happening right now in the world and the vitriol that kind of permeates, multiple places in culture right now, to where it just seems like the things that people are yelling, it's like, do you even understand what you're saying? And you're like, how does somebody just mindlessly go with the mob? And you look, I think those that don't understand their history are doomed to repeat it. And so you look at history and how, a whole country gave their voice away to Hitler. It's like, how did that happen? Well, it's not too far off from what could easily happen now. And regardless of your, beliefs or whatever, it's just when you just go with the mob instead of thinking as how does it affect the individual, it can be dangerous. And so I just think that this is a story that causes you to slow down and think, how did that happen? And how do we avoid it happening now? And how do we stand up for what's right?
And Kingdom Story is all about showing films, creating films, but you're also in the podcast world and you're telling
Yeah.
stories there too. So tell me a little bit about the Storytellers podcast.
That's exciting. Thanks, Father Edward. With this one, I'm naturally curious, and we just love having good conversations. And so we had focused so much on making the movies that we hadn't slowed down and really allowed people to have a conversation with us as we did it. And so we just had this desire of letting people have a fly on the wall kind of perspective to the conversations we get to have every day with the people we make movies with. And so we're not super interesting, but we got a lot of interesting friends. And so we released season 1 earlier in the year. Had an amazing time doing that, and so we just started season 2. My first guest the other day was Gary Sinise, and Gary Sinise is one of my heroes. And so having him on and talking through his story, he's a committed Christian, very committed Catholic gentleman, and an Oscar-nominated actor, producer. And the work that he does, humanitarian work he does with frontline responders and with military veterans is pretty amazing. So we had a chance to have him on, and every Tuesday we have a new episode come out, so you can catch it on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get podcasts. But it's called The Storytellers, and we have a lot of fun.
So we're talking about Whitebird. It's coming to theaters. When does it release? When should people go to the theaters to catch this movie?
Opening weekend is October the 4th, and so it'll be out everywhere, and then we'll platform out, kind of expand as it goes. But it's one that you need to see in theater. It is a beautifully told story. Film. Mark Forster just made something so special. So can't wait for people to see it. I'm so proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's a great movie. I would have watched it 2 times if it wasn't. So everybody
That's
go
great.
catch out this film in the theaters and see it for yourself and really take the message to heart to be kind to others. Well, thanks so much, Andy, for your time today.
Thanks, Father Edward. Really appreciate you. God bless you, my friend.
If you liked today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. And don't forget to stay up to date with what Father Edward is doing by following him on Facebook, X, or Instagram at the handle @FrEdwardLooney. Thanks for listening, and please join Father Edward again next time for another inspiring conversation.